know what it is?
We're not recording yet, Jonathan.
No, oh, good. I did murmuring. Okay. Good morning, everybody. This is the Facilities Committee meeting for the Fallbrook Regional Health Care District on June 21st. And I called the meeting to order, and I'll call for a roll call.
Director Jeffries.
Present.
Director Mraz.
Present.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments?
There's no one else on Zoom. Roy had nothing immediately, and we received nothing via email.
Thank you so much. And scrolling down, very good. So we have our wonderful, predictable, lovely litany of all things that are going on. And Rachel and Teresa, if I could just ask you anything from last month to this month that we need to look at.
No, I think the only thing we can say is the update on the exterior of the education building, building B, has been completed. They're doing some touch-ups and such, but the shade structure and the building have been completed as far as their painting. It looks great. One thing that's a little bit different is we had talked about changing out the gutters on the building.
Yes.
After talking to the painter, the way that building was built, and it was actually done in 2 sections. The gutters have a very specific way that they are connected, and it's connected underneath the roof. So the gutters would have had to have been fully removed, and they would have had to deal with the roofing, which we would have wanted to have the roofers come out and do. So we had the painter take a look at it. He said the gutters were actually in pretty good shape. They looked worse, but they have some areas where they still have a small amount of leak in the connection point. So we're going to have that part touched up, but we've left the original gutters. So what we've decided to do, and Judith and I talked about building this into kind of our annual maintenance, is having annual maintenance to have those gutters cleaned out. So since we're not putting the new ones in that have the leaf screen, we will at least build in the second part, which is to make sure those gutters are cleaned annually. And we can revisit putting new ones on if we can't shore up a couple of these smaller areas where there's some connection leaks.
Well, the first thing I want to say about that is to thank all of you for weighing the ups and downs of this, and to the painter and to all the people, because sometimes we get an escalation of commitment and just plow ahead. And so thank you for taking a little pause on that and finding interim support. I would say once a year may not be enough. So, you know, I clean mine out like every quarter because they do build up, but I may have more leaf action than we do. So I'm just saying, if you need to do it more, please let us know. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Depends on the deciduous trees that are in approximation to the
It's really only that back or that east side of the building that has any tree overhang, even a little bit.
And that's been taken back a lot, and for security reasons we'll keep it back, and that also might have been part of the reason why the paint was so bad on that side of the building. It allowed for moisture to be there, so I think it will be, with that being kept, there isn't really anything hanging over, you know, right over it.
Just giving you, just saying, let us know. Don't feel stuck with that. Any comment, Roy?
Have you looked into having leaf screens added to the existing?
No, we haven't looked yet.
That is a possibility.
Unless
keep in mind,
so
those gutters are very old. So whether or not they can retrofit them, if they're going to retrofit, it probably would end up being the same cost as brand new ones. So we can watch it. And I think if we see how much leaf litter we're actually having, you know, now that we're in there all the time and we're doing more regular kind of preventative maintenance as well, but we'll watch it. And then obviously if it looks like it's becoming a problem, or those gutters do seem to have some persistent leaks that are not fixable, we'll see what we can do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that update, and thank you for the goodly progress. I think we'll move to item 3C1I, I guess it is, since we have a guide on the side here from SiteLogic, and just by way of reminder, this is part of the integration of our thinking around the parking lot
Yes.
And so we're ready to hear all about this.
Perfect. So Josh is calling us from the phone, and Jonathan, we also saw on the screen. So just letting you know, you'll see, we'll switch, you'll see a couple of different icons. You'll either see John or you'll see Josh's phone icon.
Right.
All right.
Good morning, Directors, General Manager. How's it going today?
We're fine here, sir. Good to hear your voice.
Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Rachel, were we doing the presentation or talking about the LOA?
I think we're just talking about the LOA. We did the presentation briefly at last facilities and took that to our strategic planning board meeting. I think the board was interested in the concept. I think the next phase was really some questions on the letter of agreement, just making sure that if there were any questions from facilities that we could address it here before it advanced to the board.
Okay. I can highlight a few things from the LOA, and then of course any questions arise, or if there's any that you have now, you're more than welcome to ask. But this letter of agreement is really the next step for us to get into a comprehensive approach on dialing up really what is going to be that scope, that cash flow, and what that agreement looks like to get this project implemented. We're focusing at the two locations, both the Community Health and Wellness Center and District Office, looking at a variety of scope of some various energy efficiency measures to reduce the demand. In the parking lot areas, we're looking at doing solar arrays with potential electric vehicle charging infrastructures, and also having battery energy storage for a backup solution. So our next step is really sizing it. What are those critical needs for the resiliency of the backup? What are potential revenues that the district could obtain from charging stations? Does the program save and is compliant with California Government Code 4217 and the contracting side? And also, you know, we'd love to help assist and find as much monies that are available from the federal, state, and local levels that could be towards this program. One of the programs I've highlighted in the presentation was through the federal government. The Biden administration approved the Inflation Reduction Act towards the end of last year. That's providing over $27 billion to local governments for infrastructure, energy, electrification, these types of projects. So being in Fallbrook and meeting that criteria and some of the additional bonuses, there's a good, healthy contribution from the Treasury that will be a one-time payment of almost up to 40% of the entire program costs that will go into this. And that includes any asphalt that we'll do, I guess, around the solar arrays itself. So that outlines our deliverables in this approach on the agreement. It's kind of really I don't like to use the word exclusivity, but it's, hey, you're willing to work with us to develop a program that has economic criteria that meets both the government code and the district's appetite to want to get into an agreement to move forward implementation, but more analyzing, more research and development will be needed. So that's what's really outlined in the LOA. Jonathan, do you have anything else you'd like to add on what else this LOA describes?
No, Josh, I think that covers it. Some of it is, you know, there is still a discovery element to it. So there might be some energy conservation measures, opportunities we find once we get further into the analysis. And so I want to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves. Typically our efforts aren't, and we come back with a list of items that may have not been identified initially that will provide value to the district.
Okay, thank you both so much. If I may ask a few questions on the LOA, the LOL. I'm looking at item J. The results will be presented to client as recommended scope of work, and a financial pro forma such as cash flow will include costs and energy savings for the next 25 years with escalation of no more than 6%. Woohoo! And including future maintenance and repair costs. I love all of that because I like multi-year understandings of these kind of facilities, systemic kind of efforts. And as a result, true cost of ownership is presented to the client for their review and consideration. I'm understanding that as a next step once we tip our toe in and say, yay-hoo, is that how I should understand that?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. That would be the next step after our analysis, detailed field visit and walkthrough of the facility, spending several hours, if not likely 2 days. And then taking all that information back, doing some analysis, scoping the project, getting an understanding of the scale, and then the pricing component. How much will it cost to deliver this project? Then we'll come back with really this cash flow that shows you, the incentive, the IRA, if you will, utility cost savings. Also, the cost to maintain the solar will be detailed there, and you'll be able to make an informed decision moving forward.
Loving the IRA, especially with that
Yes.
40% savings mark, and we were going to do the parking lot anyway.
Yes.
So this is very promising. So my next understanding I want to confirm is getting us from here to the pro forma financial view. That is what the fixed fee is for, correct?
It is, and it is a fixed fee, but it's really, if a project comes out of it, there's no payment of that fee. If we've identified a project and the district decides not to move forward, then you pay that fee. Sometimes it's called a breakup fee, which, I don't know if that's the right term for it, but sometimes it's used. But you're right. That's when the fee would be owed, invoiced and paid.
Well, as a former high school assistant principal, I can identify with the breakup fee,
Yes. Yes.
Lots of drama around that. So just to reiterate, if we go forward with the project, there is no fee. If we don't go forward, we would pay you for your goodly efforts up to that point.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And if we're out there and we cannot make a project compliant with the right economic criteria and meeting government code and the values from the district, then there's no hard feelings. So yes, there's no upfront cost right now to the district at all for us to get to this next stage. I've worked with Jonathan and his team to say what would it cost in engineering time to put together this final program and potential partner agreement, and that is what that dollar value is engineering costs. So we're hoping and we are confident that we believe we'd be able to look at both campuses holistically to not only enhance the campuses with different infrastructure improvements, but also sorry, my phone's ringing at the same time, but also be able to have majority of these projects being contributed by some form of grant or incentive. Well, not all of it. But,
I know. Well, we don't expect
it's a healthy amount, and something's better than nothing. And I think we all agree, if you're not a school district in this state, you're challenged to do more with less. So we're here to help you, and that's what we are. We are an extension to the district. Even though we're a general contractor, we act again as we're trying to help drive this vision from a conception all the way to completion.
Beautiful. And I see noted in the last page if Site Logic cannot meet the economic criteria, the client will not compensate Site Logic. So I see that in the letter of agreement. So that's very helpful. I'm also looking at the potential facility improvement, energy conservation, energy generation. Will your work plan include all 4 of these as possibles? Is that?
It is, as a minimum, it'll include those 4. As I mentioned before, we'll likely find, or if we find other opportunities, we'll bring that forward to the district.
So will you, in your report to us, for at least for the first 3, would you be able to say, if you include the electrical vehicle charging stations, it saves you X, Y, and Z?
Perhaps not savings when it comes to electrical vehicle charging, but added revenue.
Thank you.
Yes, we're able to forecast that. There's some crystal ball in that, how many people will charge, but we'll be able to set up a model and almost live. Okay, is there, 5 cars a week that'll charge for 4 hours? What will that look like? And that'll allow the district to get a level of comfort of what that revenue stream is.
Okay, that's helpful. The reason why I asked specifically about the electric vehicle charging stations is I'm noticing lots of aggressive behavior around those charging stations, whether it's in retail areas. I saw a shouting match at our local library. So the income needs to be weighed against staff time dealing with that kind of outrageous behavior. And so that potential income through line will be important for us to determine, do we want to take this on or not?
Yep.
And I'm hoping that the Inflation Reduction Act wouldn't penalize us for not doing electrical charging stations for cars.
It won't. One thing that we are looking and trying to follow and understand is the California Building Code going to require EV chargers in the parking lot?
Well, we can always ask them to come out and deal with vehicles.
Exactly. And there's different strategies. We could set the rate a little higher to discourage certain folks that may want to sit there all day and slow charge and occupy that space. We could, maybe for the first 30 minutes, it's a reasonable rate. And then after that 30 minutes, it increases. So it encourages flow and movement out of those parking spots rather than someone, occupying it all day.
I'm all for behavior modification through incentives. So let's think of them as 2-year-olds. All right. And we will reward good behavior and try to diminish bad behavior. Those were my questions on the letter of agreement. I don't know, Barbara, would you like to pepper them with some questions this morning?
Are we committed to taking action on this today other than making a recommendation?
Just recommendation. We don't really take action. We're going to recommend things.
No, I think we're in the development phase. We're in discovery phase. So I think once we start to move forward and do a bit of discussion and evaluation of the properties, we'll have more tools to work with once we have the input that we can question or work with.
Cool. And so this would come back to us when the letter of agreement comes?
So
the pro forma financial, the next stage would come back to facilities.
So what we would do is the committee can recommend that we sign this and take it to the board. So this would go to the board meeting for approval. The board could discuss, we could sign the letter of agreement via the board. Once that's done, then I'll work with the Site Logic team and we'll start the pro forma. Then once they've got that all done, come back to the board
and then the finance.
Come back to the committee.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Excellent. Roy, any thoughts?
The only thing is, if electric charging stations are not required, like you said, I would really weigh the benefits.
Yeah,
to see if it's
we
even
will. Yeah.
But other than that, no, it sounds like it makes sense.
Yeah. So I love it that it's an integrated model of service for all components of this particular project. It really makes sense, and it's just smoother. It's a smooth dance, not a jitterbug. Okay,
And like you said, Jennifer, we already had it on our list of items to redo that parking lot.
yeah,
So if we can build in the solar infrastructure with this thing we were already gonna do and find funding option to help offset that cost, and that's a win for everyone.
everybody, yeah.
So
Just a reminder, we had a question on the covered parking lot solar idea and the view shed as people exit our building. Do you remember that? That the Roy made
as
the
far
good
as height
observation.
and
Yes,
such,
yeah, height. So we'll leave that to the magic of the conversation.
yeah, and I would talk to Site Logic about that specifically to make sure that we're not creating a glare situation. And that's where Jonathan and the very smart engineering
There you go.
can have that. I briefly mentioned that with a call with them, and they were like, yeah,
We'll figure it out.
We got it.
So we're assuming that you don't do any work on submarines that go to the Titanic, and your engineers are quite knowledgeable about not.
Oh, that killed my dream yesterday. If you asked me if I won the lottery, what would I do? I always, for the last 20 years,
But
said I
isn't it
wanted to go
ironic?
see the Titanic. Now I
Yeah.
don't want to.
Yeah, it's so ironic that they're looking at the Titanic, and I guess by now they're probably,
90 hours they have.
yeah, they were down to 40 yesterday. And so they may be partnering with the Titanic souls.
Well,
It's so dramatic.
They were-
Anywho, thank you so much for a succinct but meaningful exchange and for the good preparation on this with the letter of agreement. I think we're good to go here. You're good to go there.
Yeah, so as
Okay.
long as the committee wants to bring it forward to the board, we'll put it on the July board agenda. I think it's always helpful whenever possible. Jonathan, Josh, I know I spoke with you all about potentially being online for that meeting to be able to answer any questions. So we'll bring the presentation and the letter of agreement to the July board meeting. And then that way, if there's any other last minute board concerns or questions, but we'll put that at the top of the agenda so you guys can hopefully get in and out pretty quick.
Very good.
Perfect. And yes, we'll be more than happy to be there in July.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
See ya.
Appreciate
All
it.
right, thanks, guys. I'll follow up with you.
I love experts who are also accessible interpersonally.
How did you come across them?
So I met Josh through the CSDA general manager, something, a
Yay.
couple years ago,
Uh-huh.
before we were this advanced in the project. And it's one of those, like, you know, you get a lot of the literature, and I kind of kept it in my piles, like maybe I'll get to it. Once we actually started about moving the parking lot forward and separate from what we were doing with Taylor, then I reconnected with Josh and said, hey, this is our project. This is what we're looking at. He explained a little bit more in detail about what they do. So it's one of our special district partnerships.
And are we still entertaining any input from Taylor Design at all?
At this point, Taylor Design is on a back shelf. They would be one of the groups we would talk to about drafting design for the house for ADA, but really they're kind of
They're in a holding
Basic.
pattern, right?
they're on a shelf as any potential engineering design group would be.
Okay, so this is specifically for the parking lot and the solar and the chargers.
Right. So a big part of what they do is that infrastructure, especially around energy. That is essentially their niche. So the idea is that while they're a general contractor and they could potentially do many parts of the project, what I explained to them is that the board has decided that they want to look at this project instead of in total, do smaller pieces of it, with the number one priority having been that parking lot. That was the thing to look at.
Right. I would say, you know, go forward on it and let them come and look and do the eval.
Yeah, and they already did an initial walkthrough with me just to make sure that it was even worth going to this deeper dive. One of the things that really made sense to them was, because we are talking about this much more comprehensive idea of building in the resource of our energy savings. Being able to consider this parking lot, which has great solar
Yes.
option.
Very good.
I think all of us are gonna be fighting on who gets to park under the
Underneath.
solar structure all summer long.
Yeah.
Well, let's make sure there's 10 spaces.
Yeah, we'll make sure that there's plenty of spaces.
Yeah.
Would they be open to a carve out of the charging station and moving forward with the parking lot and the solar? If we choose not to have the
Oh, yeah.
charging station?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to Jennifer's question, we wouldn't necessarily be penalized unless there was something in the specifics of the building code that says, if you're going to put in this kind of thing, you must put in EV charging. If that's a requirement.
Then we have to
And
do it.
then I look at it with the strengths, weaknesses, obstacles and threats. And what about, is there any kind of liability with the charging center?
No.
We have insurance?
No, that has been so researched.
litigated.
Yeah,
Already. That's why the library has 2 chargers. The county would never allow it.
Yeah.
They were. gonna
and
go away.
FPUD also has them.
Yes. Yeah.
So I reached out to Noelle at FPUD and just said, hey, have you, and I didn't have an extensive conversation. Have you had any concerns? And she basically said, no, it's really super easy to have here. It's no issues.
But it's mostly for their employees, right?
Oh, no,
Oh,
it's
no.
public.
Oh, is it? I see.
Oh,
yeah.
it's very public.
Yeah. And the same at the library.
Same with the.
So, you know, it may be an over concern of mine, but let's wait
Yeah,
and see
we'll
whether
just-
we have to or not.
To
And
be continued.
Yeah.
Well, and
to be
it,
continued.
in some ways, to flip this, by having additional chargers in the community, we may be taking the
the heat off.
heat off, right? Because there aren't very many options in town.
Yeah.
And electric cars are, whatever your opinions on them, that is the movement of the state.
Yeah.
So being able to be part of that infrastructure.
It's a good thing. And we won't have them, you know, the libraries are available 24/7.
Exactly.
FPUD's is 24/7. Ours will
Ours
be
will not.
workday.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, very good. That's an exciting potential great project. So I'm looking at our goodly list. Can you give us an update on the ADA compliance for the House of Wellness?
So I have nothing there.
Okay.
That
Very good.
because that is going to require a massive
Yeah.
amount
Architect.
of time and energy to it. I want to get through the parking lot and get that started before we find and start looking for a partner in the redesign of that. I can tell you from my walkthrough with SiteLogic, because Jonathan is an engineer, I mentioned offhand, we'd have to bring this house to ADA. And besides the bathroom issue, which is what really we started with, the entire front threshold,
Gotta be
the
redone.
entire front walkway. So it's gonna be much bigger than just, you know, the bathroom and the backyard. So it would have to encompass the entire house. So that conversation made me say, all right, let's put this aside till we can get this first part of the project done.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, Barbara, do you agree on that? Okay,
Okay.
so D and E go together.
D and E go together.
Okay.
And so I may
We'll
just,
just let them circle a while.
yep.
Okay. No, in the air, not
Yeah.
down the.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll
Drain, but
no
like
circling down the drain.
circle
So
until they
we'll
land.
leave them as just basically pending,
Yeah.
but we'll just leave them on the agenda going forward.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Good tickler file. Any update on the communications tower?
Nope, again, I'm still waiting for them to come back with whatever their design may look like. Again, they did a walkthrough. They will go back to the partners with FirstNet that are doing the safety communication. They would essentially come back to us and say, this is what we think we want. This is a good fit, whatever the case. From there, then it would go into the community pipeline. It would go to planning. It would go to those kinds of pieces. So it would be a long conversation.
It would come back here first, right?
Oh, it would come back
Yeah.
here first.
So it'll be a repeat of the, okay,
Absolutely.
very good. We will await word. Since
wait
it's a
on them.
communications tower, but it can communicate with us. All right, and on to board member comments and future agenda items.
Are we doing anything exciting in July for an event? For the July 4th, etc. Anything, anybody going to be will the offices in the center, et cetera, be closed?
Yes,
On July 4th, sure.
yeah, it's a district holiday, so, as far as community events, I think the Rotary Club's doing their
Yeah.
now annual pancake breakfast, but as far as district office and district business, we won't have.
Sell you a ticket.
Yeah.
Sell us a ticket, funny girl. Okay.
Yeah, but no, we don't have anything in the works.
Okay, it's gonna be a pretty quiet month, other than for the activities that you're constantly doing over at the wellness.
Yeah, I
center.
don't think we can use the word quiet and
All right, no.
community health and wellness
No, no,
center
no.
ever again.
No, I'm aware of that. I think that the continuation of the programs and the awareness it's growing, and you know, the
Oh, yeah.
word's out there.
Yeah.
So, you
You're
know,
really loving it.
I'm all for it.
Anything, Roy, that you would offer?
Two unrelated questions. One was, did the change of use for the wellness center ever get to completion with the county?
The major use permit?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
that closed out.
Oh, yeah, that closed out, 21,
Okay,
maybe,
COVID time.
maybe, yeah, I don't even, I want to say October of 22.
It was right after I
21?
started, yeah.
So I think it was in 21. Wayland was our consultant, remember, and they took it to the county. It was on the supervisor's docket. I joined them via the online component. There were no final questions. They voted it. The only thing had been, we had to change that right turn only at the exit sign. That was already done. That was the only
that was my
stipulation.
second question. Were there any road requirements other than that?
Nope.
Okay, good.
No.
Good. Catch up on that. I have nothing to offer either. And so I'm going to adjourn this meeting and wish everybody a great rest of the week.
Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work. I know this has been a lot to coordinate, and you planning and hopping from meeting to meeting to get the